Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, surprise! Guess what? I was actually supposed to be playing AOD all along. I just needed a league starter to get me started so that I could transition into Aura of Decay. You heard that right? I am playing Aura of Decay right now, and I'm actually having a really good time. I finally swapped over it today after some gearing and stuff like that and some research, and now we are fully playing it. And yes, it does damage, and yes, it does clear, and yes, it has endgame viability, and yes, it does have scaling. There's so many things to talk about, so we're just going to start. Now, first things off, Aura of Decay is a damage over time skill that applies bleeds or poisons or frostbites at 4 times per second at either 100% of your poison or 75% of your bleed or 100% of your frostbite, if I'm not mistaken. This means that you get like 4 times your ailment chance per second, and it's okay. That's a good start. Then there's extra ailment chance in the tree. There's extra ailment frequency, duration. There's more damage based on how long you've been standing still. There's a lot of other things, but the biggest problem with Aura of Decay is how do we scale it? Like, what do? We can't scale attack and cast speed. We can't scale this. We can't scale that. What are we supposed to do? Well, I have found the way. First things off, there is one huge downside with Aura of Decay, and that is it bleeds us too. And as we increase the frequency, as we increase all of these other stats, the bleeds applying to ourselves with the Aura of Decay is going to cause a lot of issues. And the biggest issue that this ends up causing is, we just die. Like, turns out having like 20 bleeds on top of us is not a good way to live. Even if those bleeds don't do that much damage, it's still enough to start causing us issues. So how do we deal with this? First is off, Mask of Indifference. What this does is it gives us immunity to bleed and specifically here, stuns, which is nice for us. Now, the biggest problem with this mask is it's a primordial item, meaning I don't have any other primordial items to fit in the rest of the build. So we have to find different ways of scaling the character that isn't just slap on the best primordial and do a billion damage, right? And we have found a very interesting combination with Pearls of the Swine, the bleed version, and of course our offhand, the I can't remember what it's called. Oh my goodness. The offhand, the Reign of Dragons offhand, Symbol of Demise. Yes, it's been forever since anyone's used this fucking thing, so I'm sorry for forgetting the name. Now, the concept of Symbol of Demise is it consumes your ward every 3 seconds, and then based on the amount of ward it consumes, it gives you a lot of bleed duration. So right now, currently my Symbol of Demise is giving me 200% global bleed chance, which is very important because Aura of Decay does not work off of like conversions or anything like that. You can't just use Carrion of Creation, get a bunch of Frostbite chance, convert it into bleed for Aura of Decay. It does not work like that. Don't try that. Some other people have, and we can laugh at them at the sidelines, right? Now, don't do that, but what you can do is get a lot of generic bleed chance, right? And Symbol of Demise is 200% on top of 100% bleed duration right now, up to 100 to 150% bleed duration right now. Sure, we're consuming the ward, but that's not that big of a deal. We're tanky enough at like 4k life for now. We will get better gear, but that allows us to have a lot more extra statage that we normally just wouldn't have, right? We normally wouldn't have that in our offhand slot. Offhand slots don't really do much for damage, but Symbol of Demise really does. Now, how do we generate all the ward to consume? That's with Pearls of the Swine. Pearls of the Swine gives us a lot of ward per second based on the amount of curses on us. So right now we're running Bone Curse Aura, which applies Bone Curse to us, which then also applies Mark for Death, and then it also applies Decrepify. Now this comes with a few problems. First things off, Bone Curse can do a little bit of damage, so fast hitting enemies do a little bit more damage. Then Mark for Death reduces our resistances all around the board, right? And then we have Decrepify, which makes us take a little bit extra damage over time. Trust me though, it's all worth it as we end up with well over 600 ward per second currently, and all of that ward per second is being turned into bleed duration to do more damage. But the funny thing is, since the rotation of the buff, it only takes like 3 seconds to proc, means that in those 3 seconds, if a boss hits us, we have an extra layer of defense. Sure, we lose a little bit of bleed duration, but it's better than being dead, right? So we kind of get the benefit of having ward while also reaping the benefit of Symbol of Demise at the same time. And as we get better and better ward, this will get better and better and better. This leads our Aura of Decay to actually do enough damage to, do endgame. Now, the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems with Aura of Decay is there's not many other skills that scale like it. You want a bleed / ailment skill that does not scale off your attack and cast speed, but you want something that like does a lot of damage and can use bleed. Well, thankfully, Chthonic Fissure actually fits the bill here, but not for the reasons you think. Chthonic Fissure has a node that turns 400% of your global bleed chance as ignite chance per second, and then also gives that damage a lot of extra more damage. And if we pop that down into the boss while we're also Aura of Decaying him down, it ends up being close to like 30 to 40% of DPS because it just simply scales the same exact way Aura of Decay does, which is very convenient. Now, something interesting is when we're farming monoliths and walking through them, right? We have a trail of blood that's constantly behind us, meaning that as enemies walk behind us in the monolith, they'll take very large amounts of bleed damage and then die, especially because we have bleed overload, which makes us deal either 15% more physical damage over time to bosses, or it makes us deal 15% more damage against enemies that are moving, which is cool because they're always going to be moving because they're going to be chasing us as we're going to be walking through the mono. And then also as well, we get the 40% more damage to moving enemies from Blood of the Exile, meaning while we're clearing trash, what ends up happening is they'll follow us after we apply a bunch of ticks on them with Aura of Decay, and then they'll just die because our bleed duration is really high. So they take a few seconds to lose the bleed duration, but by the time that happens, they've walked enough to die. So it makes clearing feel very convenient and comfortable. Now, we do need to invest in this further. I did do some offline testing, and we got around to like 7 to 8 million DPS with like some mediocre gear. The gear that I have in the footage is very bad, as I ran out of a lot of favor when I was trying to make this character, so I ended up having to cut it short slightly. But I do plan on playing for the next few days and investing into this character because I really enjoy Aura of Decay, and it's really nice to be able to say that there is a viable Aura of Decay build out there that's like actually punching above its weight and actually functioning. Hopefully soon we can get it to like 1,000 corruption and do Aberoth with it. Those are the current goals for the build. I don't really expect to do Uber, as I don't think I could get enough defenses to get Uber, but like whatever, it's not that big of a deal. It's fucking Aura of Decay. Last patch it was a complete joke, so seeing that actually function in this patch is rather entertaining. One thing as well is we can grab the nodes that make it so that enemies have -1 resistance per point of intelligence. Because of this specific thing here with Aura of Decay, we have to stack a very large amount of fizz resistance because we're also losing that from our int, and we're also losing it from Mark of Death. So we actually have to run the blessing, the physical resistance blessing, unfortunately, but it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a hamper. We get plenty of armor because we have to run a lot of mana regen due to the fact that Aura of Decay consumes 6 mana per second. Bone Curse consumes 10 mana per second, and then Chthonic Fissure consumes a lot of mana because Chthonic Fissure costs a lot of mana. So we end up having to stack well over 31 mana regen just to make it so that we're not constantly running out of mana. We can sit in the game, we can work on our gear, and then also, actually not run out of mana. Like, that's very convenient. Other things that we're just using like Profane Veil for defenses, and then we're using Hungering Souls for the very obvious 40% more damage multiplier. And that's pretty much it currently for the build. I will be making updates as I keep investing and investing. This is what you would regard as the bare bones approach. Like, we are at the most bare bones possible to get this build to feel actually convenient and fun to play. Now, with all that being said, if you haven't already, I'd heavily suggest leaving a like on the video, and subscribing to the channel, as that is currently the best way of supporting me. It's the best way of showing me you want more content like this, where it's a little less serious and more focused on the build and the fun stuff we can do with it. Now, with all, let's go. I'm tired. I gotta go do stuff. Talk to you guys later. Bye.